I'm Bernadine Jayasinghe. This is News First, where the people come first. Let's now take a look at headlines.
Socialist Youth Union stage protest opposite the President's office. Queues to purchase fuel continue. Shortage of paper. Exams in the Western Province delayed. To what conditions did the Finance Minister agree to in India? Will the IMF come to Sri Lanka's aid? Filling station in Navala robbed. Bike riders apologize for yesterday's rally.
The Socialist Youth Union affiliated to the Janata Vimukti Peramuna staged a protest march in Colombo today.
The protest march began from the technical junction in Maradana. The protesters demanded the government to end the shortage of fuel and gas, terminate the agreements that handed over the Trincomalee oil tank farm to India and the transfer of shares of the Yugadanavi power plant to US-based New Fortress Energy. The protesters marched to the President's office through Olcott Mawatha and Lotus Road. Police officers, the President's security detail and members of the Police Special Task Force were deployed opposite the President's office. This is how a group of protesters entered the outer gate of the President's office and staged their protest. The group demanded for an opportunity to present a petition drafted by the Socialist Youth Union to the President.
It's been only 2 days since Gotabaya Rajapaksa spoke to us. Open the door of your air-conditioned room and look out. The youth who painted the walls on the street and cultivated barren paddy fields have now surrounded your house. Can you hear them? We would like to inform the officers here that we have come here to solve the issues that will affect your children. We came to demand for our rights as well as yours. We came here for you. If you have any conscience, turn your weapons towards them and not towards us.
Security officers interrupted the protesters when they attempted to power up a generator to activate their speakers. Officials at the President's office informed the protesters that neither the President nor the President's secretary were available to receive the petition of the protesters.
After we came here to meet Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his secretary, they are locked in a deep discussion. When we asked to at least meet the secretary to the President, they refused. We came here to hand over this letter, but they are refusing to even send someone to accept this letter. They are so busy fixing the country, so you and your cabinet of ministers can stay in there for a little while longer. We are going to symbolically burn this. We ask you to apply this ash on your head. We burnt this letter that you refuse to accept, but we will not leave any dirt here. Remember that. The entire country does not have fuel, gas, medicine or dollars. Amidst all of these issues, Sir is going to inspect how train compartments are manufactured. When people are standing in queues, he goes to inspect the production of yogurt. Our country became poor while our rulers became rich. We need to find out how this happened. We didn't come here to ask for jobs. We didn't come here to ask for land. We came here because we can't sit back and watch while our country and our heritage is being stolen and looted by these thieves. Now Gotabaya has to leave through the back door.
The delegation headed by Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa returned to the island this afternoon from India after signing an agreement for a $1 billion credit line from India. In addition to this $1 billion credit line, India has already granted Sri Lanka a $400 million credit line to purchase fuel and a deferral for a $500 million debt due to the Asian Clearing Union. India has provided Sri Lanka with an aid package of $2.4 billion to date in response to the economic crisis in the country.
Our neighbours India have always been a friendly nation. Indian Prime Minister Modi informed me that India is willing to support Sri Lanka economically and socially. In addition, they had analysed our organic fertilizer policy and the renewable energy policy of the President. They said that they have a shortage in nano fertilizer but promised to provide Sri Lanka with the stocks that we need. They provided us with a credit line of $1 billion so that people can purchase medicine and food items for the upcoming Sinhala and Tamil New Year. This credit line came into effect from yesterday. I request the business community to provide these items to the people at a reasonable price, and these imports will be done transparently under the Ministry of Trade.
පොඩි මුදල ගෙවීම සහ ඒවා වාරික ගෙවීම අවුරුදු 3කට පස්සේ තමයි ගෙවන්නේ. අමතුමා ඒ කියන්නේ අදින් පස්සේ ජනතාවට මේ ප්‍රශ්න ලොකුවට ප්‍රශ්න ඇති නොවේද? ඒක ඉතින් අපි ජනතාවයි අපි මේ ව්‍යාපාරික ප්‍රජාවයි හැමෝම එකතු වෙලා උත්සාහයක් ගන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් ඒක සඳහා අපේ මහජන නියෝජිතයොත් පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරු ගරු අමාත්‍යවරු ඒ අදාළ විෂය බාර නිලධාරීන් සහයෝගයෙන් මේකේ උපරිම ප්‍රයෝජන ජනතාවට ලබා දෙන්න කටයුතු කරන්න. තාම තෙල් පොලිම ඉවරලා නැහැ, ගෑස් පොලිම ඉවරලා නැහැ. ඇයි එමෙතුමා මේ දේ විසඳ ගන්න බැයිද තාම? ඇත්තටම මේක කාලයක් තිස්සේ
This issue was developing over a course of time, and we came into power when the crisis was at its worst. We understand that people are going through hardships. There have been certain delays in procuring some items. The new ministers are making the purchase quickly. As the finance minister, I will provide my full support for this.
අපි වෙලාවට කියන හුඟක් ඒවා ඉස්සරහට වැඩි කල්පනා කරන්න යන්න එපා. අපි ඒවා ඊටාම ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඊටාම කල්පනාකාරීව දීර්ඝ කාලීනව වැඩපිළිවෙලක් ඇතුළත තමයි කටයුතු කරන්නේ.
While India has granted Sri Lanka a $1 billion credit line, the IMF spokesperson Gary Rice said the International Monetary Fund intends to begin discussions with Sri Lanka on a program to support the country.
In our Article for consultation recently. We just concluded the board meeting on that late last month. We highlighted the urgent need to implement a credible and coherent strategy to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while protecting vulnerable groups through strengthened, well-targeted social safety nets. So that was our annual consultation with Sri Lanka, which we have with every country. I can tell you we stand ready to discuss all options for Sri Lanka.
The Economy Next quoted the Director of Communication Department of the IMF, Gary Rice, is saying discussions with the authorities on how best the IMF can assist Sri Lanka going forward will be held during the Finance Minister's visit to Washington in April. A delegation headed by the Director of the Asia Pacific region of the IMF held discussions with the President and the Finance Minister recently. In his recent address to the nation, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that discussions with the IMF have begun to find a solution to the crisis. Is Sri Lanka seeking assistance from the IMF at the right time? Will Sri Lanka receive assistance from the IMF at a time when the foreign reserves in the country are depleted, prices of goods in the market have skyrocketed, and where the country is facing multiple shortages in fuel, gas and power? Going to the IMF at a time when the economy of the country is extremely weak may result in the country having to agree to all the terms and conditions put forward by the IMF. Would it not have been more apt if the country sought IMF assistance when the COVID-19 pandemic was brought under control and economic experts called on the government to do so? Economic experts are of the opinion that if IMF assistance was sought then and our foreign reserves were strengthened, the general public would not have had to face many of these crises that they are facing today. What is the reason behind seeking IMF assistance at a time when the country is facing multiple crises? Will the crises be resolved with the IMF assistance alone, or is this an attempt to create an atmosphere to repay the $1 billion sovereign bonds that mature in June? When experts called on the government to restructure government debt and delay the payment of the $500 million bond that was due in January, the government went ahead and settled the payment. It is alleged that those who purchased these bonds for a lower price in the secondary market made massive profits due to this move. Is this the next step to create an atmosphere to pay back the bond that is due in June?
Many international news organizations are reporting extensively on the economic situation in Sri Lanka. Bloomberg says seeking help from the IMF is the most feasible way to get out of the crisis in Sri Lanka. In a report, Ankur Shukla, a Mumbai-based economist with Bloomberg Economics, said the Russia-Ukraine war has worsened the already weak external balances situation, increasing the gap between external finance requirements and financing sources available. Bloomberg reported that Russia's war in Ukraine is now threatening to crush Sri Lanka's economy. It said, quote, hit by soaring oil import costs and a dip in tourism revenue, Sri Lanka is racing to avert a default amid dwindling foreign exchange holdings, unquote. It added that with inflation already at 15%, the worst in Asia, the conflict is only making it harder for Sri Lanka amidst fuel shortages and blackouts. Meanwhile, in another article, Financial Times has also reported that the Sri Lankan government has taken a policy U-turn by deciding to hold talks with the IMF over a debt relief package. Quoting analysts, FT reported that Sri Lanka has debt and interest repayments worth about $7 billion due this year, with usable foreign currency reserves falling as low as $500 million.
What are they trying to ask from the IMF? The IMF tells us to sell the remaining resources. Before they went to the IMF, they carried out their instructions. They raised the prices of fuel and goods. The IMF insisted that the concessions should not be given to the people. Now that has taken place. Now the only thing that needs to be removed is their privileges. Now they are trying to pin the responsibility and blame the cutting down of concessions on the IMF, not the President or the Finance Minister. They will not bear the responsibility for everything that has happened thus far. They will also relieve themselves of any responsibility, saying that they are simply following the instructions of the IMF.
දැන් ගෝඨාභය මහත්තයාට මේකටවත් කියනවා IMF එක. දැන් මෙච්චර කාලයක් කරපු දේවල් ටිකටවත් කියන්නෙත් නැහැ. ඊළඟට IMF එක කියන නිසා කරනවා මට වගේ කියන්න බෑ කියලා ඒකෙනුත් අත හොද ගන්න. නියම බඩු.
School term exam. Is this the latest crisis? The Director of Education for the Western Province today announced that the final term examinations of schools in the Western Province will be delayed. This is due to a shortage in sourcing paper and other materials to prepare the examination. Due to the shortage of paper and other materials, the final term examination timetable for grades 6, 7 and 8 will be amended, and the final term examinations for grades 4, 9, 10 and 11 will be moved to a date after the April 2022 holidays. Accordingly, schools that are able to conduct term tests according to the Western Province exam papers have been instructed to conduct examinations as per the schedule. However, the examination can be conducted by preparing question papers and schedules at the school level in instances where that is not possible. The letter issued by the Western Provincial Director of Education states that soft copies of the question papers required for the examination have been sent to the zonal officers. However, principals are required to print examination papers. Will the fuel, gas and electricity crises be resolved? This is what the ministers had to say. 4th March 2022. 7th March 2022. 8th March 2022.
ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී සහතික වුණා ලොකුගේ ඇමතුමා ලබන බ්‍රහස්පතින්දායින් පසුව ඛනිජ තෙල් පිළිබඳව තියෙන අර්බුදය නිමා කරන්නට කටයුතු කරනවායි කියලා.
9th March 2022.
ලබන සිකුරාදා සෙන්සුරාදා වෙනකොට අපේ පිරවුම් පොල්වල පොලිමක් නැතුව තෙල් ගන්න තත්ත්වයට පත් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
14th March 2022.
සහතිකයක් වෙනවා ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් තොරව ඛනිජ තෙල් ලංකාවේ බෙදාහැරීම දිගටම කරගෙන යනවා.
16th March 2022. 17th March 2022.
අද උදේ ඉඳලා අපි කොළඹට තෙල් බෙදා හැරෙන්න පටන් ගත්තා. මම විශ්වාස කරනවා අද 11-12 වෙනකොට සෑම ෂෙඩ් එකකටම බවුසර් දෙක ගානේ හම්බ වෙයි.
However, this was the situation today.
For the past few weeks, Sri Lankans have been waiting in queues to pump petrol. Now today, the situation today is no different. Right now I'm in the filling station in Flower Road, where a long queue of vehicles can be seen waiting to pump diesel. As you can see, the vehicle queue stretches to like 500 meters towards Royal College, and apart from that there is a queue of three-wheelers here as well to pump petrol. Now some of these drivers have been waiting here since 5:30 in the morning.
දැන් ඇමරිතුමත් කියනවා බාලගිරි දෝෂය අද නොවේ හෙට වගේ තමයි. ඒක එදා දවසේ මේ ගැට ගන්න හදන සීන් එකක් කරන්න නරකයි. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ ඒක. අපි දුක් විඳින ජනතාවට දාන ප්‍රශ්නේ මේක. ඒගොල්ලෝ සැප විඳිනවනේ. දැන් වෙනසක් කරන්න යාවේ වෙනස කරා අපිට හොඳටම. දැනලා තියෙන හොඳටම. නෝනා උදේට ගෑස් පොලිමට යනවා. පුතා යනවා මේ බූන් තෙල් පොලිමට. අපි මෙතන ඩීසල් පොලිම. දැන් අදලත් මෙතන බුදියන්නේ. කඩෙන් කාලා බුදියනවා. මේ බුලත් ඉල බුදියනවා රට්ටට කකා. ඉන්නත් එපා නිදි වරන්නත් එපා. නෝ පිනස් ඇරිය. ඊට පස්සේ ඇරිය සිච්චා මේක උස්සා යනවා. අපි තෙල් නැහැ කිව්වට පිනස් කරවන්නේ නැහනේ.
Meanwhile, the Bowser which distributed fuel to the filling station in Kolonava said only petrol was released. The Ministry of Energy states that a ship carrying 40,000 metric tons of diesel obtained from an Indian loan facility will arrive in Sri Lanka tomorrow. The Ministry Secretary KDR Olga said that all arrangements have been made to unload the diesel stocks on board the ship, which will arrive in Sri Lanka by Monday.
People continue to stand in line to purchase kerosene oil in Barakah Goddess. filling stations issued tokens to people last night. However, only a limited number of people were able to get the tokens.
දුකක් තේරුම් නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ට කවදාවත් හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ඉස්සරහ දුප්පත බලන්න කියන්න. පස් ටිකක් කන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒකත් කනවා. දැන් මිනිස්සු මැරෙන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්න ඕන. ඒ ආණ්ඩුවේ බයිසිකලෙන් ඇවිල්ලා ඔක්කොම නටලා පෙන්නුවා. දැන් අපේ ඒගොල්ලන් කවුරුත් හරි නටලා පෙන්නනවාද? මේගොල්ලන්ම ඇමරිකාවට යවන්න තමයි කියන්නේ.
ඔක්කොම එක වලේ පොල්.
අපේ මාසේ නොම්බ්‍රි අල්ලලා අපි අවු වෙන්නද කියන්නේ? ඒ පව් කවුද ගෙවන්නේ? මෙලම් තලට කණ්ඩායම් තත්ත්වයකට ඉන්නේ මෙතන අපි.
කතා කළා අපිට කෝපවුසුනට වැඩි හොඳ කතා නොකරන එක.
3,500 metric tons of gas unloaded from the tanker purchased by Litrogas was distributed today. Chairman of Litrogas, Teshara Jayasingh, has said that 120,000 gas cylinders were released to the market today. However, these stocks of gas cylinders will only be sufficient for 3 days. Love's Gas said that their production process has been halted. People in many parts of the country continue to suffer without gas.
උදේ ඉඳලා එකතු වෙනකන් ඉන්නවා ජයලා ටීවී එක. පාන්දර 4 වෙනකන් ඉන්නේ. වතුර ටිකක්වත් දෙන්න කවුරුත් නැහැ. ඡන්දේ දුන්නා නම් අපිට ගහන්න ඕන මුලින්ම.
ගෑස් සිලින්ඩර් 50ක් දීලා දෙනවා 50ටම නම්බර් දීලා දෙනවා අපි ආවිල්ලා ඉන්න කට්ටිය. නියමයි. පැය 11 ඉඳලා යනවා මාත්‍ය ගෙදර. මේ සැප තමයි අපිට. 4 වෙනි දවසේ මේ ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ පොලිම. ඔව් පෙරේදත් කට්ටිය පොලිමේ හිටියා රැලි වෙනකම්. බානවා කියලා කියන ගෑස් නෑ. නමුත් මෙතන එනකන් අපි දන්නේ නැහැ.
Minister Namal Rajapaksa returned to Sri Lanka after concluding his tour of the Maldives. The minister attended the Maldivian Sports Award ceremony organized by the Ministry of Youth and Sports of the Maldives. The award ceremony was attended by sports ministers from many countries and the international athletes. Minister Namal Rajapaksa also attended a water sports promotional event in the Maldives.
Newsfirst with the people.
People are taking to the streets out of frustration, demanding solutions to their issues. The silent protest was held in Kohola this afternoon.
The protesters lit candles and held placards during the demonstration. They are opposing the prevailing crises in the country, including the shortage of essential items and the soaring cost of living as the rupee depreciates. Demonstrators say that they are not affiliated to any political movement.
So we are here because we want to represent those people who can't afford to come and hold candles like this.
It's time for the people who can do it to come together and stop this corruption and do what's right for the country.
People are helpless and the leaders are not sensitive. It's evident in their actions.
Is there a solution? Can you at least make the right decisions now? We are facing many shortages and we cannot even engage in our businesses.
The general public who have been battered by economic hardships continue to stage protests in various parts of the island today.
Farmers have been severely affected by the sudden decision to ban chemical fertilizer, and they point out that they have not received a proper harvest for the Maha season. Farmers in Kajuwatta Aralaganvila today engaged in a traditional ritual as a mark of protest and demanded solutions to the issues faced by helpless farmers.
Mama winning the Duke Danny, near Rasni on the day harmed to with Irum Kileka Kadagata, Irum Kileka, Alisaja Kava, Aramara Sanda, Tatiana, Kasanda, Denina Parhata, Apidila Kelavata, Mahapari and Davidiana.
A group of farmers engaged in a traditional ritual at the Sorabara fields in Mahyanganaya.
Traditional rituals were also held in Dul Ravakantale.
ඔය ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්න යක්ෂ ප්‍රේත කුම්භාණ්ඩය භූතය සියලු දෙනාටම කියන්නේ ඉදිරි කන්නේදී අපේ ගොවි මාතුන්ට අපේ ගොයියන්ට අපිට ගෙනත් දෙන්න අපේ දේවල් පෝර ටිකද විතර වීටියේද තෙල් ටිකද මිලාඩු කරලා දීලා ගොවි තැම්පත් කරගෙන ඉීමට අවසරය ලබා දෙන්න.
A group of fishermen staged a protest obstructing the Colombo-Katargama main road from opposite the Devundara Sri Vishnu Devalaya. The protesters marched to the Sri Vishnu Devalaya from the Devinuvara Fisheries Harbour. The protest was staged over the increase in fuel prices and several other issues. Fishermen and the people have been forced to stand in queues. They are saying that there is no fuel and no gas. More taxes were imposed on fishing equipment and now those prices have increased. The price of ice has increased. We came here to ask our leaders for answers. Meanwhile, the fishing community in Payagala North also staged a protest along the Gaul Road in Payagala.
They say that there is no money in the country. How can they say that? A gem worth billions was found. Where is that money? Foreign remittances are sent to the country. What did you do with that money? Billions were found in Nirupama's account. What did you do to that money? Those funds are not shown anywhere. Big businessmen are not facing any troubles. It is only the poor fishermen who are affected. If you cannot rule this country without burdening the fishermen, give us back our country and leave.
Water supply for Dehiwala, Mount Lavinia, Ratmalana and several surrounding areas has been suspended for 24 hours due to a sudden breakdown. An explosion in a main pipeline that occurred at about 7 this evening was the cause of the breakdown.
The pipe had exploded in Udumulla Mulleriyava. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board said that the supply of water was suspended to Colombo 5, Colombo 6, Battaramulla, Palavatta, Udumulla and Himbutana. In addition, water will be supplied at low pressure to Colombo 4. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board said that it would take 24 hours to repair the pipe. The explosion of the pipe had also damaged a few houses in the area.
U.S. Under-Secretary for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland is scheduled to visit Bangladesh, India and Sri Lanka this month to underscore U.S. commitment to and cooperation with its partners. The U.S. State Department said that the Under-Secretary will travel from 19th to the 23rd of March. According to the U.S. State Department, on each stop, Under-Secretary Nuland and the delegation will meet with civil society and business leaders to strengthen economic partnerships and deepen ties in the pursuit of peace, prosperity and security in the region. Moving on to more local news, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today handed over 15 state-of-the-art firefighting and disaster relief vehicles worth over 2.4 million rupees to local government bodies today.
Officers of the Fire Brigade of the Colombo Municipal Council and a parade of fire engineer officers were held to welcome the Prime Minister at the ceremony held at Golface Green. The handing over of the equipment was done by the Prime Minister. The equipment was funded by the government of Austria.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says that sacrifices must be made by the leaders before the burden is passed down to the people.
Due
to the inability, the stubbornness of the government, the country has collapsed. Today, foreign reserves in the country have depleted. They introduced tax cuts worth close to 800 billion. As a result of low income, the credit rating agencies downgraded us. As a country, we cannot go to the international capital market and ask for dollar loans with low interest. Now they are using the precious dollar reserves in the country to purchase medicine, fuel amidst the present situation where they are unable to import fuel. There are power cuts leading to a reduction in productivity in factories as well. Production of export items in the country reduces. As a result, the inflow of dollars reduce. This has become a vicious cycle in the country today. Is there a solution to this? Yes, there is a solution. Sacrifices will have to be made by many. The sacrifices must be made from the top, starting with the President, Prime Minister and Ministers. They must lead by example. The opposition leader expressed these views during an event to hand over digital computer screens and computer equipment worth 850,000 rupees to Bopitiya Vimalavansa Kanishta Vidyalaya in Akurasa.
The motor rally organized by Sports Society made headlines last night. Today, the final leg of that rally was cancelled.
Meanwhile, today the police took steps to suspend the motor rally that was to be held from Kalpitiya to Anuradhapura. The rally was suspended due to mounting public protest and violation of certain conditions. There was massive public outrage against the motor rally, which included many high-end luxury vehicles and motorbikes that travelled from Kuliyapitiya to Kalpitiya. The police said that they received a request from a private biker society to conduct this rally over the course of 3 days from Mirigama to Anuradhapura via Kalpitiya, in line with a donation made to the Apeksha Hospital and a program to distribute books and school equipment to students in Kalpitiya. The police added that as this was a legal request, the police granted permission for the rally after charging the society the necessary fees and laying down certain conditions. The communique issued by the police media division says that legal action will be taken against anyone who had violated the law. The biker society that organized the rally convened a media briefing today and expressed these views.
We first apologize for organizing a rally like this. We organized this tour in January. There was no fuel shortage then. We scheduled the tour for the month of March. By March there was a fuel shortage, but we had already paid about 1.5 million for the hotels, and because of that we couldn't cancel this. We have been going on this tour for the past 10 years. Every year, in line with the tour, we organize some program to give back to society. This year we donated 1.2 million rupees to the Apeksha Hospital. In addition, we also hope to provide books worth 500,000 rupees to a school in Kalpitiya. Also, there are no political connections here, but there may be some people who are connected to politics who are there with us. But as far as our objective goes, we have no affiliation to any political party.
එයාගේ සම්බන්ධයක් නැහැ. අපි කොහොම මොඩ රත වලට මොඩ යතුරු බැරි වලට ආස කට්ටිය විතරයි. අපිටත් ඔය අර්බුදකාරී තත්ත්වෙ මුලින්දලම තිබ්බා.
We faced this issue at the start. We stood in queues at the fuel stations and purchased fuel, and we were with the general public of the country. Since the fuel bowser came to the filling station, when we got there, people thought that there was some political involvement. We did not think that this event will go viral this year. We have no political connections or any hidden political agendas.
කිසිම දේශපාලන අරමුණක්වත් යටි අදහසක්වත් අපේ තිබෙන්නේ නැහැ.
In a tweet, Minister Namal Rajapaksa's media division said that no assistance was given by the Ministry of Sports for the cycling competition held in Kalpitiya. It adds that the Ministry of Sports had no affiliation to the event.
The people continue to wonder, what is the connection between the rally and the charity event? Attempts made by Newsfirst to contact the organizers of the rally for a response to this query were futile.
Newsfirst with the people.
The chief incumbent of the Askeri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Barakah Goddess Sri Gnanaratana Theru, celebrates his 80th birthday today.
Many religious rituals were observed both yesterday and today at the Muthiyangana Raja Mahavihara in line with the birthday of Venerable Barakah Goddess Sri Gnana Ratna Thero. The renovated Bomalu of the Muthiyangana Raja Mahavihara was inaugurated this morning in the presence of the Mahanayaka Thero. An alms giving for 100 venerable Theros was held to invoke blessings on the Mahanayaka Thero. Barakah Goddess Sri Gnana Ratna Thero was born on the 18th of March 1942 in Harispattu of Varakagoda. The Venerable Barakah Goddess Sri Gnana Ratna Thero was appointed as the 22nd Mahanayaka Thero of Asgiri chapter on the 7th of April 2016. Newsfirst wishes you a very happy birthday and many more years of service to the country.
The Asia-Pacific Broadcasting Union's Intellectual Property and Legal Committee Forum 2022 was held online today.
The theme for this year's IPLC is driving forward urgent reforms of the 1961 Rome Convention to counter signal piracy in the broadcast industry and Asia-Pacific perspective. Presentations on contemporary legal topics made by eminent lawyers, legal professionals and other experts on matters related to broadcasting were elaborated at the forum.
An academic argument is that the boundaries are getting thinner. In a converging industry, there is no point in protecting boundaries. Another argument that counters the above argument is that extremely regulated environment can affect creative industry and the use of free culture which will obstruct innovation. Therefore, we at National Intellectual Property Office of Sri Lanka take a very pragmatic approach as we think a proper balance in IP is required for the development of information society and facilitate convergence.
If it's very serious infringement according to the different steps we take, if in the end there are very serious infringement, we have to first take down the evidence and for the preservation, and also we should go to the court for the penalty, I think.
Rescuers have freed 130 people from basement of a Maripil theatre, but 1,300 remain trapped. Hundreds of people were sheltering underground when the theatre was bombed by Russia on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Russian missiles have struck an aircraft maintenance plant close to Lviv. The city's mayor says it is the closest the war has come to the historic city in western Ukraine, which has been a safe haven for people fleeing. Fighting the Russian president yesterday rang his Turkish counterpart and told him what Russia's precise demands were for a peace deal with Ukraine.
On a phone call with Turkish President, Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed Russia's precise demands for a peace deal with Ukraine. First, Putin is seeking assurance from Ukraine that it will remain neutral and not seek to join NATO. Putin also wants Ukraine to complete a disarmament process. The more challenging demands involve the status of Crimea and the Donbas region. Foreign media reported that Putin said he would need to meet with Zelensky in person to discuss this. On Wednesday, Zelensky laid out his own demands for peace talks with Russia after officials from both countries said they were making progress. The Russian president has also sent a chilling warning to the West and oligarchs as he claimed Western attempts to have global dominance is coming to an end.
Коллективный Запад пытается расколоть наше общество, спекулируя на боевых потерях, на социально-экономических последствиях санкций.
The collective West is trying to split our society, speculating on military losses, on socio-economic consequences of sanctions to provoke a civil confrontation in Russia. And the goal is one, the destruction of Russia by any people, and even more so the Russian people will always be able to distinguish true patriots from traitors. I am convinced that such natural and necessary cleansing of the society will only strengthen our country. The new realities will require deep structural changes in our economy, and I will not hide it. They will not be easy. They will lead to a temporary increase in inflation and unemployment. Our task in this situation is to minimize such risks.
A model agroforestry initiative has been designed and introduced in Sri Lanka with the support of the Netherlands Embassy in Colombo. This project is designed to increase the productivity of degraded lands where tea and coconut were grown. The event to launch the pilot project was held in Colombo this morning.
The event was held with the participation of several dignitaries, including Minister of Plantations Dr. Ramesh Patirana, the Deputy Ambassador of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Her Excellency Ms. Anouk Baron.
Life on land, namely agriculture, including the plantation sector, is the largest employer in Sri Lanka. And we are all aware that many tea and coconut plantations struggle with socio-economic and environmental issues which directly and indirectly affect hundreds of thousands of Sri Lankans. Introducing this diversification system as an alternative production method and an additional business model for the degraded areas of the plantation is very promising indeed. Agroforestry will support the achievement of the visionary goals laid down in Sri Lanka's Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy.
Many thefts were reported recently in several areas of the country. Today, a group of people who visited a fuel station in Navala under the guise of purchasing fuel had robbed the establishment. We leave you tonight with CCTV footage of this robbery. I'm Bernadine Jayasinghe for News First. News First, but people come first.